I'd like to welcome everybody to the Village of Woodbury August 16th planning board meeting. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Hand over heart. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. All right, again, welcome to the Village of Woodbury planning board meeting. First item, has the board had a chance to review the minutes that we received on August 2nd?
Yes.
I'll offer a motion to accept those minutes.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, first item on the agenda. Absent 8 Laurel Lane, reviewed additional documents received for proposed site plan and special permit for change of use to indoor commercial recreation facilities at properties located at 8 Laurel Lane in Central Valley, known as the Village of Woodbury Tax Maps, section 226, block 1, lot 24.2.
How are you tonight?
All right, so, sir.
Doing well. I'm John Petrosini, the engineer for the applicant. We had left off that your board felt the project was at a status where you were comfortable with it, but we had the issue with the water moratorium. So we have since appeared before the village board and we were given the exemption and the project was approved by that board. We have made a few revisions to the map to resolve Natalie's hopefully last issues. So at this point, we believe we've addressed everything.
Yeah, I know there's one outstanding with the easement, the drainage easement.
Yes, we did. So we received a legal description today. I sent our comments to Kelly. And then I think the only thing that we are waiting for is the drainage report, actually.
Correct.
So, but at this point, I think everything is handled as part of conditions of your resolution. So there's nothing prohibiting the board from acting, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. The board received a little draft resolution? Yes. All right, so first finding was that the applicant received an exemption from the current moratorium from the Village Board of Trustees on June 22nd, 2023. Several pages of facts and findings, and then we get into the specific conditions. There are a few of them. So I apologize here. Yeah. To the board, I'm just going to go through with them. If you have an exception, just speak up, or else I'm just going to keep going. All right. So all conditions of prior approvals in connection with this property shall continue to be in full force and effect, and this resolution does not supersede or otherwise modify such prior approvals and conditions except as specifically set forth in this resolution. Compliance with regulatory approvals, if any, shall be obtained. The accessory building shall be maintained so that it will be left not to deteriorate. All new plantings shown on the plans or as required or authorized by this resolution of approval shall be planted in a timely manner consistent with planting season and maintained in healthy and vibrant conditions in perpetuity. All light levels must be limited to 0.1 foot candles at the property line, so no off-site glare will result. The fixtures shall meet IDA, LED, or green globes criteria for nighttime friendly or dark sky lighting. Any wall pack fixtures shall include non-glare shields. The hours of lighting shall be the same as the hours of operations as noted on the plans. The property shall not be rented out for private events and/or gatherings. This is not being approved as an event venue. The applicant must take all reasonable steps to prevent improper materials from being placed into wastewater system, including but not limited to placements of signage in appropriate language and locations as improper disposable material. All waste shall be placed inside the dumpsters as shown on the plans, and the area surrounding the dumpsters shall be kept in neat condition. The applicant may proceed with its improvements to the extent allowed by the variances granted by the Village ZBA decision on June 11, 2015, and the plans reviewed there within, which is incorporated herein by reference and shall comply with any and all conditions of said decision. There shall be no parking or offloading on Laurel Lane. The employee parking on the other side of Laurel Lane from the proposed development is part of the plan being approved herein and must be retained for such purposes and to the extent shown on the plans. By resolution of approval, the planning board is not approving the use of this property of the location of the encroachments of the subject lot, section 226, block 1, lot 24.2, or the adjoining lots, including but not limited to the potential existing side yard encroachment in the 30-foot side yard setback area for the existing storage building. The property shall be responsible for the maintenance and inspection of existing stormwater maintenance facilities Example, rain gutters, inlets, etc., per the plans and the stormwater drainage report approved by the planning board in September 2015. This is where the board's resolution will change. There were some wording changes in 14. In accordance with the village code, the building inspector, code enforcement officer, fire inspector, and/or fire marshal shall conduct periodic inspections for compliance with the provision of the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code. If entrances to make an inspection is refused or cannot be obtained, the building inspector, code enforcement officer, fire inspector, and/or fire marshal shall have all remedies available under the village code. Additionally, refusing entry to the building inspector, code enforcement officer, fire inspector, and/or fire marshal shall be deemed to be a violation of the special permit, and the applicant shall be required to cease operations on the property and return to the planning board for further review. That was a mouthful. No new signage or modifications to existing signage is approved by way of this action. If modifications to existing signage are proposed, the applicant shall apply to the building department for permit. Prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall install water main in accordance with the plans and approvals of the Planning Board, Department of Health, North and Suffolk Railroad. Water main installations and water service connections shall be witnessed by the village water department, and construction in accordance with all requirements of said water superintendent. Provided a drainage report advising as to the current operation of the stormwater management facilities, including the inlets and rain gardens, to the satisfaction of the village engineer. Make all repairs and/or modifications necessary to the stormwater management facilities as required by the village engineer based on drainage report provided to the satisfaction of the village engineer. Prior to the signing of the plans by the chairman, the applicant shall comply with the memorandum of the village engineer dated May 12, 2023 to the satisfaction of the village engineer. The applicant shall comply with the memorandum of the village traffic engineer dated January 12, 2023 to the satisfaction of the village traffic engineer. The applicant shall prepare a 50-foot wide easement in favor of the village of Woodbury as shown on the plat. Which meets and bounds legally described to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney to allow construction, access, and maintenance of current and future stormwater facilities within the Lower Rain right-of-way under the control of the village of Woodbury. Proof of filing the easement with the Orange County Clerk's Office shall be provided to the building department prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. Stormwater facilities described in specific condition number 13. This is also a change from the resolution you have in front of you. Above shall remain the responsibility of the property owner. The applicant shall prepare a 15-foot wide easement in favor of the village of Woodbury with meets and bounds legally described to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney to allow construction, access, and maintenance of current and future stormwater facilities through the employee parking lot towards Woodbury Creek. Proof of filing is easement with the Orange County Clerk's Office shall be provided to the building department prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Any questions from the board? I'll offer a motion to accept the draft resolution approved as read this evening. Second by Tommy. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, have a good night, everybody. What's up?
So I'll finalize it. It'll get sent to the chairman to be docu-signed, and then I mail it to the clerk for filing. So it should be in the mail by the end of this week, but maybe Monday at the latest.
That's a good thing.
But if you need a copy that's just been signed by the chairman, I can email that to you. But I won't get a copy that's also signed by the village clerk until after that.
Were there any changes from the draft that we received?
Just the ones that you pointed out.
Okay, so the sooner I get the revision, because I don't have photographic
I can
memory.
send you a red line version as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
If I may, I just want to thank the board. It's a bittersweet moment for us. We've been here since 2008. I came in front of the board in 2016 to put that building up. You guys have been phenomenal. The community's been great, so it's bittersweet, but I just wanted to thank all of you for taking the time and making this happen. I really appreciate that.
Good luck in your
All right?
future ventures,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Take care. Next item is Light Bright. Light Bright Signs, Hampton Inn. Discuss and review resolution for 2 signs proposed for the Hampton Inn located behind Woodbury Center. Said property is located at 60 Center Drive in Central Valley and is known in the Village of Woodbury Tax Map, Section 225, Block 2, Lot 1.11. Good evening. How are you?
Hi.
All right. I don't think we have anything for the
Just the resolution.
resolution, right? Yeah.
I'm going to put that finding in bold as well.
All right, Has the board had a chance to review the resolution? Okay. Okey dokey. So, several pages of facts and findings. And we get to the specific conditions. All conditions of prior approvals in connection with this property shall continue in full force and effect, and this resolution does not supersede or otherwise modify such prior approvals and conditions except as specifically set forth in this resolution. The welcome sign shall not be illuminated. No trees may be removed to make the new Hampton Inn sign more visible. No building permit shall be issued authorizing construction of structures inconsistent with the architectural renderings submitted to and approved by the Architectural Review Board as part of this approval, nor shall any certificate of occupancy issue for any structures constructed except in conformance with such renderings. Any deviation from such renderings will require further planning board review. Prior to the signing of the renderings, the applicant shall comply with the memorandum of the village engineer dated December 29th, 2023. Any questions from the board? I'll offer a motion to accept. Oop,
That doesn't make sense.
December 29th,
Yeah.
2023.
hold on, is there an up?
2022.
2022, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so with that modification, I'll offer a motion to accept draft resolution of approval.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
When does that get signed? Just because they're gonna want to know, the customer.
Sending it to the chairman for his signature tomorrow. And then
Oh,
once we
great.
get that back, then it goes to the building department so that the village clerk can sign it. So it should be fully signed by the middle of next week.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, have a good evening. All right, next applicant, 228 Route 32 LLC. Oh, nope, sorry. Timber Trail ARB public hearing for ARB and ridge preservation for proposed single-family dwellings located within a previously approved subdivision on Hollow Court in Highland Mills. Said property is known on the Village of Woodbury tax map, section 237, block 2, lot 5 through 11. I don't see Larry or anybody here representing Timber Trails. Yeah. All right. We'll skip reports now, and I'll just I'll open the public hearing. Because there's nobody here to answer, so. All right, so I'm gonna open up the public hearing for Timber Trail. Is anybody in the public here to speak on the Timber Trail ARB application? Second call, Timber Trail ARB public hearing. Anybody here to speak in the public for Timber Trail ARB? Third and final call for the Timber Trail ARB public hearing. Okay, so I'm gonna just make a motion to December 6th, I think, right?
December 6th, and just so the board knows, it's because the applicant has to go to the ZBA, and that will take several months. So for the public as well, anybody that did want to speak on that, they'll have another opportunity.
So I'll offer a motion to extend the public hearing to our December 6th meeting.
Second.
Second, any questions?
No.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Now 228 Route 32 LLC. Review and discuss documents submitted for revised site plan to include planting beds for water runoff. Said properties located at 228 Route 32 in Central Valley, and is known as the Village of Woodbury tax map, section 229, block 1, lot 28. Good evening, gentlemen.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. As a reminder, we were here in response to a violation received when the owner removed planting beds from the property.
Yep.
We then came back and looked for a planting bed at 4x4 sizing and was asked by the engineer to show how the 4x4 planting beds would work. We went back to our civil engineer. We have Joe Rena from Site Design here, who put together the calculations to show that the planting beds work, and it turned out they didn't work. So at the end of the day, what we have done is we had Zambrano Architects and Joe Rena from Site Design got together and identified the proper size of the planting beds, and we have submitted those for your review.
Anybody from the board have questions for the applicant before we go to Natalie?
On the record.
I thought you said your name.
Mike Tynan.
Thank you.
Mike.
Okay. Any other questions? for the applicant before we go to Natalie? All right. Natalie?
Yes, so I think as Mike just described, our technical comments on the stormwater management aspect of this application are resolved. The only outstanding comment that we have for the board that you may wish to discuss is whether or not there should actually be any vegetation within the planter areas. The plans were revised since the prior submission that you had a chance to review to remove the hydrangeas that were originally proposed. So right now, there's a gravel, essentially planter area underneath each downspout of the roof leaders, but no plantings. So that's the only thing we wanted to present to the board. If you want to provide some direction to the applicant, they can add that to the plans. Otherwise, I think there's just some administrative items that need to be resolved. The projected water and sewer demand form should be submitted for a complete application. A short form EAF had not been received, but we did receive that this afternoon, and that's just for, again, the file so that you can conclude seeker. And then also a public hearing is required for this application, so that should be scheduled when you're ready. And that's all I have.
And just to note, we did submit the water and the water demand form.
Oh, okay. Oh, great.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one come through.
Does anybody have questions for Natalie? No? Feedback for the applicant, anything?
I think there definitely should be some landscaping going on here.
In the planting beds or around the planting beds?
Both, actually. Why didn't we just go back to the original? Approval? Still there.
Any particular reason they don't want to put the original landscaping back?
Because there was many beds and it blocked people from going from the interior of the walkway to the parking lot. This gives us more walkway to get from the interior to the parking lot, which was one of the reasons why they had the thought about removing them in the first place. They thought it was too restrictive of walkway areas.
I thought it was done without their knowledge.
No, that's true. But the reason why they talked about doing it was that they talked about doing it. They said they wanted to do it, and somebody just went ahead and did it. But the idea came from restrictions on the walkway to the parking lot.
Is there, I don't know if there's anything you can put in those beds that could survive. That's going to survive.
Yeah. What about around them? I mean, there's gotta be something up front there. I think that's why the original plans probably were the way they were.
Yeah.
We can't propose anything on the street side, can we?
On what side of it?
On the street side,
Walking around
the
side.
parks, the 32 side.
Well, they have trees and stuff
Yeah, they
along
got
30.
trees.
They have trees and stuff along 32.
I just think along the front of the building, there should be some kind of landscaping.
You have it looks like there's a space in front of the, I guess where the gravel beds are and the curb.
Put something there in front of it.
Yeah.
How much space is there?
There's no dimension on that.
Mr. Tynan,
Yeah.
there's nothing precluding you from putting landscaping or vegetation within the gravel beds.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so that's an area
Yeah.
that's 48 square feet,
But the
so,
whole thing.
But is it going to survive? I mean, think about it. You got plants at home that get inundated with water. What do they end up doing?
well, there are certain species that are more tolerant to having moist soils or, things like that that you could consider. And it is only during rain events, but,
I mean, I think that would be amenable, right? If they would put it.
100%.
Yes? No?
You guys?
Yep.
Go ahead. You haven't been here. Go ahead. Speak up.
Oh, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
That's what we're saying. Put something that would tolerate the moisture in the gravel.
Not just cactus.
Yeah. Not just cactus. So we got to have a public hearing anyway. Do you think you could come up with some kind of plantings that you could put in those beds?
Absolutely, sure.
We could schedule your public hearing for the 6th. If you how long do you think it would take for you to get?
I think, Will, do you think we can put that together for the 6th? Or? Yeah.
Would have to be in by next when? next Wednesday?
Yeah, I don't
You
think
think you
that'd
could
be
do
an
that?
issue. Yeah.
Okay. All right, is the board okay with that, having, for the public hearing? Okay. All right, so
Great.
I'm going to offer a motion to schedule the public hearing for our September 16th.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. All right,
Thank you very much.
thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to go back. See, Larry has joined us. We're going to go back to Timber Trail ARB, public hearing for ARB and Ridge Preservation for single-family dwellings located in the previously approved subdivision of Hollow Court in the Highland Mills. So, while you weren't here, we've extended your public hearing to the December 6th meeting.
However, I was thinking of the wrong application. This doesn't need ZBA, it just needs amended subdivision plat. So he needs to modify the application materials submitted to you. So I don't think that it would probably, I don't know how long it would take to make an amended subdivision plat application, because you're going outside that 10 feet that's permitted. So however long that takes, I would say either keep the December 6th or change it to your
Well, the 20th is out, so September's out.
October 18th.
What was that? You changed it to what, December?
So when you weren't here,
Oh.
I informed the board that it needed a ZBA variance, but I was thinking of a different application, so I'll just forward, which would have brought your public hearing being extended to December 6th.
Okay.
However, you don't need ZBA, you need amended subdivision approval instead, because you're making the houses extend past the 10 feet, and that's a note on the subdivision plat. To amend the note on the subdivision plat is why you have to go back to the, so you have to make another submission for that. So to give you time for that submission and for the board to review it, I was suggesting changing that December 6th and bringing it back to October 18th.
We're now at August. So basically, the process would be to, basically, I mean, I've done all the work, basically showing it, but basically filing for it, and
The board has to consider, when the board initially, prior board, whenever the original subdivision was approved, had put that restriction on there in a general note, and obviously put it on there for a reason, so the board needs to consider if they actually want to remove that note or modify that note. And if they don't, then you have to change the layouts of the homes to comply with that 10-foot restriction.
okay. And what is the process for me applying for the planning board?
So it would be an amended subdivision plat, so you have to have the plat prepared removing that note. And then the board would have to consider that. That amended subdivision plat that goes through the same referral process to the county and also requires a public hearing. So if that material was in before you, you could try and schedule that public hearing at the same time as the continued ARB public hearing, which is why I said maybe December was a little too far on my part.
Is October going to give us enough time, though, depending on when the applicant gets everything in? Because at 2:39, we got to wait.
It depends on how long he thinks it would take him.
I don't think it's going to take that long because I mean, everything is just, it's just a matter of, I have already the plot plan with everything. It's just a matter of, you said, removing that specific note and giving it in as an amended plot plan. But the work is there, I don't think I would be able to do it. It's just the work is already there.
I think it would be whoever did the original plat, you could probably get that engineer to recertify, but remove that note. Incorrect.
No, but that would have the old house, all footprints of the house.
Well, I think right now that's, the footprint is going to be slightly changed, but the note needs to be removed or the note needs to be modified after the like what you're requesting.
That is why I'm a little confused. So basically, if I'm understanding well, we need to submit the old plan, just remove that specific note for an amended site plan approval, and then that's my question. But that still has the old footprint of the houses.
So the footprint needs to be
So the footprint needs to be updated.
It would be, yeah, I mean, that would be the correct thing to do
Yeah.
for
So
completeness
basically,
purposes, yeah.
again, I would look at it a little bit different. I would look at taking the new plot plan.
Yeah, if you already have the new plot.
I have, which I already have and already submitted, and that does not have that note, and maybe have
Whatever the carryover notes are from the other.
for the other one without that
Well,
specific note.
Larry, just to be clear, it's not an amended site plan approval, it's amended subdivision
Subdivision
approval.
approval.
So that subdivision map that has the meets and bounds descriptions of all the lots and those original notes and things like that need to be presented and amended in that form. So it's like one overall of all of the lots,
Yeah.
if you will.
Because eventually it'll need to be on a Mylar that gets filed with the county clerk or something.
Wow.
So I'm not sure how long that takes, so.
Yeah,
December may not be.
No.
Good, we could bring it back.
I would bring it back. I didn't know that we'll need all of that, so I'll definitely make sure to have it in time. I mean,
So you want us to, you're thinking October, you want to come back for October then?
yeah.
Okay. All right. I will, there's something else to talk about too, but I'm going to amend my previous motion to extend the public hearing till December, to move that till October 16th.
Second.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. What? 18th, sorry, 18th. I wrote 18 too, and I don't know why I said 16th.
Sorry, I knew it was subdivision and I said CBA.
It's one of those nights. We do though, and I know it's in both of your notes, and Natalie, I'm not going to try to steal your thunder. We do have a pending opinion from the building inspector that a closet makes a bedroom. And we have rooms that are labeled music room, unfinished, that have closets in them. Do we need to get a new opinion from the building inspector, or does Larry need to remove the closets?
So I think when I looked at it, there were still some rooms, I know there had been some confusion last time, and there were rooms that said these and things like that, that did have closets, and some of them were removed. But I did notice that there are some rooms called family rooms and study rooms that did still have closets.
Right.
So I think he needs to speak to his client and see if they want to try for an additional bedroom, and however that changes, or whatever, water, however that changes.
I guess I'll rather move it. I thought if something's like a family room on the next to the kitchen, connected to the kitchen without any door enclosing it, it was my impression that it's very hard to be a bedroom. But there's a closet in the family room. But if you want us to remove it, I'll remove it.
Well, the thing is right now is we're working on the interpretation from the building inspector that a room with a closet, and that's how it's defined. There's no other definition around that. If a room has a closet in it, he's considering it a bedroom.
Okay, if that's
So,
the case.
well, we could do two things, right? We could,
We can see if it
We
has a
could-
door, or if it doesn't have a door.
Right.
If it matters, if that changes the interpretation.
so we could re-ask the building inspector if he wants to elaborate on his previous interpretation. He may or may not. I have no idea.
Okay, I'll take
Or
a
you
look at it.
And at the same time, you could speak to your client depending on the interpretation that we get back, whether it changes or not. Does he want to take the closets out of those?
Yeah, if we have to take out the closets, I'll wait for the interpretation. If we have to take out the closets, I'll take her out. It was my understanding if, let's say, an open room to the kitchen, which is usually a family room, which has like a wide opening, has a toy closet in it, it wouldn't be. But if that's the definition, closet equals bedroom, I'll remove it.
Unfortunately, we have to go. We're bound by what the building
Yeah.
inspector
If
has
that's the
defined.
case.
So,
If that's the case, I'll just comply.
Let him know.
yeah, well, Natalie will follow
We'll know
up.
all advance if you need to remove it or.
I'm
Not a
sure
problem.
he'll know in the next couple of days if
Or
he's
you
ready.
could take the door up, consider it
A pantry or a built-in or something like that.
Yeah, maybe that would make sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Did I steal anything? Sorry, Natalie. I know you had a memo too.
No, actually, I just wanted to kind of raise the 2 points that were already discussed tonight. The rest of our comments are related to ARB, and it's really just informational for the board to consider the size of the home compared to Lot 8 and the other comparable homes that were presented. So other than that, just seeker remains to be concluded, but obviously that'll be postponed now because of the amended subdivision, so that's all.
Okay. And I think, not talking about size tonight, but I think the board, this board previously had conversations about the color and the design, and
We were okay with
we had no other feedback for the applicant. So right now, we'll just go ahead, take care of the subdivision map, getting that note changed,
Okay.
and then we can move forward from there. Natalie will follow up with the building inspector. We'll see if the interpretation is any different. Let you know, talk to your client, and then otherwise, we'll see you back on the 18th.
All right,
All right?
fine, not a problem.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Technically, it's not, you already adjourned it.
Oh, I left it open though. I'm sorry.
Close it?
You want me to reopen it?
You adjourned it, or
Yeah, we gotta, we could,
but you can't, you haven't.
I can reopen it.
scheduled for October.
It's up to the board.
Anybody mind if I? I'll make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
I'm sorry. I
That's
didn't wanna
okay.
interrupt-
My fault.
That's okay. I didn't want to interrupt while you were all talking. Maria Hunter, with this particular project, setbacks were set in a certain way because this project was proposed, because I was on the planning board at the time, this project was supposed to put the house situated so that there would be solar roofs, so they would use the solar solar to, and that's why the houses were put in a certain way, and that's why the 10-foot envelope was installed. Also, looking at the map real quick, because I couldn't see it on the, in the cul-de-sac, I don't see it listed. There's supposed to be a section for snow removal, for snow to be put on there.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a snow push area.
Yeah, I didn't see it on the map when I was
We'll
looking.
double, I know it was on one of the maps. Maybe it inadvertently got removed, but we'll make sure it's,
And the
back.
size of the homes, do you remember what they were previously? Because it seems quite larger now, the size of the square footage.
they're anywhere between, I think one of the largest ones is 120% bigger than the other homes.
So the homes were, this project was before the board for quite some time, and these homes are built in certain sizes, and they're not supposed to be anywhere near Route 32. They're supposed to be kept up closer to their cul-de-sac. I just want to make sure that this is taken care of properly, because now you're going to have to go for an amended site plan and subdivision. Just please review what was previously done prior with this project, because this project was very intense when we were going through this. And at the time, was it the town or the village, when I forget when it switched over, promises were made from the previous owner on how these houses were supposed to be built and designed. So I'm just asking this board to take a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Anybody else? Being we reopen the public hearing? Okay. Do I actually have to close it again, or?
You have to move to adjourn it to October 18th.
Claudia's going to kill me. It's okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn the public hearing to October 18th.
Second it for a third time.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Sorry about the back and forth tonight, everybody. Okay. Woodbury, next item, Woodbury Common, Bolsine, something like that. Discuss and review documents submitted for an amended site plan, special permit, and ARB for proposed kiosk with outdoor seating area. Said property is located on Woodbury Common property off Route 32 in Central Valley, Village of Woodbury tax maps, section 225, block 1, lot 70.2. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Board. Jennifer Kanarick on behalf, from Price Me Shulman and Darmanio on behalf of the applicant, commonly referred to as Woodbury Premium Outlets, Simon Property Group. As the Chairman mentioned, we're seeking amended site plan approval, special permit, and ARB approval for a proposed kiosk for a tenant known as Bolachine and Company to operate a champagne bar. For housekeeping purposes, we received the village engineer's report dated August 10th of 2023. I have with me this evening Mr. William Pendergast, Vice President of Construction, who's overseeing the construction process for the installation of the proposed kiosk. The board was provided with the application materials, photo renderings of the proposed kiosk, both interior and exterior. We also supplied plans prepared by Chicarico Architecture and Design, dated May 22nd. That consisted of a total of 3 sheets: cover sheet, a feature / egress plan, as well as an equipment schedule. To provide a brief overview of the proposed kiosk, this proposed kiosk will replace the previously approved double kiosk, which was formerly known as Sugar Fina Candy Company. Champagne Bar proposes to serve alcohol and some limited prepared or packaged foods. Proposed tenant has received its temporary retail permit from the New York State Liquor Authority. That was received on May 30th. The area of the proposed kiosk will continue to have an outdoor seating area, which may be used not just by patrons of the Champagne Bar, but customers of the center overall. There are existing utility connections, which include water, sewer, electric, and gas, and the 2012 overall ESO plan for the site and for the area specific to the commons for this proposed kiosk will continue to remain, and there will be no encroachments with respect to ESO access. I can bring up Bill if you have any specific questions as to what's being proposed.
My first question I have is that in your application and your narrative, it just states that the seating is still going to be open to everybody in the commons to use, but in the renderings, it's completely boxed in, and there's something that's referred to as a main entrance. So, to me, that doesn't, I mean, to me, that just looks like, just like Parm. There's a hostess stand outside Parm, and no one's going to go sit there because it says main entrance and the hostess says. So how is this application going to be different?
Bill Pendergast, Simon. The area has to be enclosed or, I guess, guarded off with a simple railing or some other kind of system because the liquor authority requires it.
Right.
It's not specific to typical food tenants, but when they do serve alcohol, it has to be confined. You mentioned Parm was the same way. They basically had controlled area for seating, but that seating is open to the general public whether they like it or not because the lease does not allow them to specifically use that seating for their own use. So again, it's common area seating, but because of the liquor use and the state liquor authority requirements, they have to put some kind of control of that area.
Interesting. Other questions for the board right now? No? Yeah, they have, it's on the corner there, they have with the, the plants and the same thing, and there's like a little hostess stand there too. Natalie?
Sure. So just briefly, because I know Ms. Kinerick and Bill just touched on a couple of our comments already. So one is that a GLA tally should be provided associated with this application. That's common for any application at Woodbury Common. I think the last one was a couple years old, so it's good to have an updated version of that. We also pointed out that the outdoor seating area seemed to be reserved for Bollicini, in which case we thought that maybe it would be appropriate to refer this to the building inspector for an opinion as to whether that should be counted as additional GLA. Right now, the plans show that the kiosk is the same essentially footprint as what the double kiosk was before, approximately 400 square feet, but that outdoor seating area was questionable, as you raised. I'm still not sure, actually, regardless of, if it is a requirement of the liquor authority to have that area roped off for the purposes of that use, it would seem specific to that use. And again, perhaps you want to refer that to Mike for an opinion. A projected water and sewer demand form should be updated to, or provided to indicate whether or not the water and sewer usage would change as a result of this application. Ms. Kinerick already said there are no encroachments of the ESO path, but typically you would receive a plan that shows the limits of the ESO path around the kiosk, so that should be provided. As always, pedestrian circulation and safety is of the utmost importance, especially in a place like Woodbury Commons, so we recommend a condition of your action that would require the applicant to install safety barricades during construction and all appropriate safety measures. Landscaping is shown on the renderings. We recommend you confirm that's to your satisfaction. And also with respect to ARB, although renderings were provided for the kiosk itself, Woodbury Commons has material boards for each section of the common. You may wish to review this sections in conjunction with the kiosk renderings to make a determination on similarity and dissimilarity. And otherwise, that's all I have, I think.
This would be a change, though, with kiosks, right, though? Because typically kiosks, food served outside, nobody goes inside a kiosk to get food.
I think it was, you had to serve from within to without, and now they're seating, did I get that right?
Yes,
Now they're
that's
seating
correct.
inside.
Right, there had to be a window, come and walk up, order, and the food would come out. Now this is, they're going to be in the building, in the kiosk, per se.
That would be a modification to kiosks.
Now, is that changing the kiosk definition as a whole?
It would be.
Right.
But if certain kiosks were going to be amended, I think that those would likely have to come back to you. But depending on how those kiosks are going to be set up.
Well, no, because this goes back to a conversation or an application a year and a half ago, where the whole the change of the kiosks and changing the size of them, and
The RMUs, right?
RMUs and. I definitely think we should have the referral to Mike, the building inspector, I'm sorry, for the calculation, if it's gonna count in the GLA calculation.
I agree with some of that. I think, like you said, with the change in the definition of the kiosk, what do we have to do? Is this gonna be an overall change on any kiosk or?
Well, Kelly's saying they would have to come back,
Each
but.
one. That is not the present.
Just if I may add, all the kiosks are part of the approved GLA, so if we were to eliminate one to swap for another, that's always been done in the past as well. So every kiosk that you see on the center is counted as part of the GLA, and as recommended by Natalie, we'll provide you with an updated tally of that GLA count.
Right, but being the seating is roped off, and I don't remember what we did with Parm. Even though the representation is anybody can sit there, the seating area is enclosed by a barrier.
Can you provide something from the liquor authority that says?
Yeah, I'm looking into that. We had discussed that offline. So.
But the other kiosks don't have seating inside.
No.
So it's a change in the definition of the kiosk.
For the seating, correct, but it still counts as GLA.
That it does, but it changes the definition of the kiosk. Which this board did have.
Yeah, I remember. Anybody else have any feedback, concerns, comments? Okay. Anything? I guess we could,
Go to Mike first and see what he says.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I know, we could reaffirm secret tonight, though, if we wanted to.
Actually, if the GLA opinion comes back that that seating area is included, and for some reason the tally shows that Woodbury Common is over the
Right,
allocated
then it
GLA,
would-
then that would impact seeker, I think, so.
So I take back my previous statement.
I was on the same page as you, and Natalie was spoke up.
No, but what she says makes sense, so.
Right, and it doesn't progress the project right now without that information. I will say that it also was referred to the county, we haven't gotten anything back from them yet either, so. I
Alright.
usually say it's a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of homework and wait for the building inspector's interpretation to come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to add or, no? No? Okay. All right. So, obviously, we'll wait for the building inspector's interpretation and your resubmission with the outstanding items.
And then we'll set a date
For what?
for a hearing.
No. So, next is, this is the sign. Next item, I think it was in my agenda, is Woodbury Commons poly sign, discuss and review ZBA decision for the proposed poly sign with 6 tenant sign faces to be placed in an area between entrances A and B on Route 32. Said property is located Woodbury Common property off Route 32 in Central Valley and is known as the Village of Woodbury Tax Map, Section 225, Block 1, Lot 70.2. Good evening again, sir.
Good evening.
All right. I know you guys are back from the ZBA.
Yes. So just a little, just in case everybody's not aware of what the application was, when we first started, originally when the DOT widened 32, there was a sign at the entrance at the far end of the center, the main entrance, that was removed by the DOT because of the change in the roadway, and there was no way to put it back there. So we went back to the zoning board to get the third sign approved for use for the third pylon sign that's on the property. There's one at Ninja Road at the traffic circle. There's one at the secondary entrance, and this would be the one that replaces what was removed by the DOT at the main entrance.
That was the littler sign, right? That was in like the island there when you first turned in?
It's actually the same sign that's on Ninja Road. We relocated it.
Okay.
It was-
I had to go back through Google Images to find
Right.
which sign you were talking
Right.
about. And there's like a couple of reiterations there, so I just
Yes.
wanted to make sure we're talking about
Yes,
the same one. Okay.
So the ZBA, we went through the ZBA to get the area of the sign, the height of the sign, clarified and approved by them for the area. And that's what you have before you now. The sign has multiple tenants on it, but the tenants are, they will all have the same color signs. They don't have their own options of colors. And then we have our own, branding sign that's the top part of the sign.
Do any other centers have a sign this size?
Most of our centers have signs that are even larger. This is like one of the smallest.
Is it possible you could just shoot a few examples? Not tonight, but you could just.
Oh, sure.
I was trying to Google, but there's no Googling is Simon Mall.
Yeah,
and
this
his
is
sign
very
doesn't really come up.
This is very similar to Harriman Commons
Okay.
in terms of its size. And I think there was one that's just recently, or it's being approved, or it's in the plans for the new development that's up on the hill where by the gas station. There was another sign there that just went through the ZBA as well, I believe.
Yeah, it's a little different, but yeah, I know what you're
Yeah,
talking
so it's roughly, the sign is 20 feet wide and 25 feet high. Limited tenant panels, but because
The
of the
renderings have 6. You have the big sign,
correct.
and then you have 6 underneath. So
Right.
where's the 10 come from?
There's tenants, I meant, not tenants.
Oh, tenants, okay.
Tenants.
Okay, sorry, I misheard you.
Yeah, there's 6 panels on each side of the sign, and then the Simon branding and Woodbury Common Premium Outlets is the upper portion of the sign.
Okay. Comments from the board?
No.
Good. Natalie?
Our comments on this application are relatively limited. As Mr. Pendergast described, the applicant did receive a variance from the ZBA for the sign area, as well as to permit a third freestanding sign on the property where one is typically permitted. We didn't get any new materials since the original submission to the planning board, so if those have been revised for the ZBA, then they should be submitted for you to consider. One of the things that the ZBA decision did note was that there should be grading and landscaping around the sign to be sure that it conforms to the 25-foot maximum height requirement. So that should be shown on the plans that are submitted to you. And then, like all of our typical comments, the applicant should confirm compliance with the code requirements for illumination as well as the structural integrity of the sign. And then the only other thing that I wanted to mention is the area where the sign is proposed appears to be in conflict or as part of a utility easement that's existing on the site. So the legal documents for the easement should be provided to Kelly for her review, just to make sure that there's no issues associated with that. And then lastly, a public hearing is required for this application at the appropriate time.
Would you be able to get the requested information by next Wednesday?
I will do my utmost to do that.
Because then we could schedule you for the 6th.
Yeah, we've already started to look for the variances, not the variances, the setback requirements. That utility easement was vacated by Orange and Rockland when we came in for an application to put the high tension lines underground. They were all relocated underground, so that utility easement has been vacated by Orange and Rockland, so that I can get pretty easily. The DOT, I'm working on getting their setback requirement from their maps, but I will do my best to get it by next Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't think we need the easements and stuff in for the public hearing,
the
but
rest
it
of
would
it
be the drawings and the compliance with the ZBA is
Yeah,
what
we
we
can-
would
we
need for
can
the
do all
public
that.
hearing.
Yep.
Okay. All right, is the board okay with that? Yep. All right, so I'll offer a motion to schedule a public hearing for September 6th. Any questions? No. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item. Chugging right along tonight. Highland Mills Senior Group, review documents submitted for site plan, special permit, and secret for review, proposed 84-unit senior housing project located on the east side of Route 32 near the intersection of Ford Avenue and Highland Mills. Said property is known on the Village of Woodbury tax maps at section 218, block 2, lots 7, 9, 10, 11, and 13. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. George Lithgow for J&G Law, the project applicant. With me tonight is Joe Fau from Peter, Zach, and Fau. He's the project engineer, and Steve George is the environmental consultant who is working with the wetlands, the bats, the rattlesnakes. So he'll give you an update on those things that are mentioned in Natalie's memo.
Okay.
And I do want to say I found Natalie's memo very useful, particularly in terms of identifying things which are site plan and things which are seeker, and hopefully that's what we'll be able to work through tonight. And we did get the part 2 that your attorney prepared, and we're ready to discuss it. So one thing I know, I think Chairman Gerber is the only member who was actually at the last appearance we made in June of '22.
Oh, maybe you weren't. No, you were here, I think. Yeah, you were here.
I think you were absent, though. If you were here, I was going to say you may be the only one who has a sense of deja vu, but you may share it as well. So we're going to briefly describe the project.
Yeah.
I can give you an update if you wish on the process that we've gone through, but we have finally been able to resolve the sewer issue that was raised by Natalie. I think now we're ready to proceed through with seeker. We turn to the village board for their decision on whether or not to apply for senior housing, and then we'll be back to see you for site plan.
I don't think you need to go, I mean, a brief overview is good just to keep everybody up to speed. This board's plan tonight is to go over the part 2 and let the board review the part 2 and then give that back to our attorney and consultants to mull over and answer. So don't go completely nuts with the long presentation, but.
Joe is very succinct.
Okay.
Do you want a presentation?
Go ahead. I didn't say no. Just you don't have to. We don't have to do every I and every T tonight.
3 boards, 3 minutes.
That's fine. I'll go through real quick. There's 6 task parcels involved, and I did a little color presentation here. And what we're doing is we're targeting it. It's a 2-lot subdivision where we're taking lot 1, which is in pink, which is what we're looking for, the overlay, the senior housing zone. There's going to be a second lot, we created lot 2, and then these yellow pieces here are really going to be added to the trailer park section because there's encroachments and give them a little extra room. And that's what that is. And then the project itself, I just very briefly described it, is we have a single axis. Now this is a single lot that we're going to be asking for the zone change that was in Peru before. What it is a single axis up in New York State 32. We're going to have 2 buildings, 42 2-bedroom units each for a total of 84 units. There's going to be a total of 144 parking spaces with this. There will be emergency access out to the trailer park. That is basically what the project is in a nutshell. There's an outside wetlands, on-site has been delineated, it's been signed off on the Army Corps. We have that tonight, the map and the letter.
Okay.
And we are stating completely out of those particular wetlands. We do understand that there will be a town wetland permit required to buffer. And that is pretty much the project. I'm going to show you really quickly.
And just, these maps haven't changed. I have the map, I think it's 21 is the date. So those maps haven't changed since then, correct?
Since the last revision date was June 30th of 22.
Okay. I will look for the newer ones. The ones I have are from 20. It looks almost identical, but
Yeah, there was a major change prior where we actually had the stormwater pond where we were actually crossing the wetlands.
right. I know you moved. You pulled that back, right?
Taken that out, so there's actually no wetland disturbance now.
I just may have downloaded the
And then this
wrong maps.
shows the zoning map. I mean, this is your existing zoning map. Basically, just showing that will be these areas that we will be adding to the trailer park section, which is the R1A zone, because the back parcel of the hard piece here that we're giving is in the R2. So we just thought it would make sense to take this floodplain really.
Yeah.
But we propose to take this and this little sliver and add it to R1A zone.
Okay.
That's the project in a nutshell. Thank you.
And just for the public that may be watching at home, this project will be discussed in much greater detail as we move along in the process, but Right now, we have some other items to get through with secret review and that, so we didn't want to take up everybody's too much time with everybody.
You have to submit it to me.
Did you?
Sorry, I know it's.
Well, I'm
No,
figuring
thank
when,
you, though. I appreciate
because
it.
all the people that watch the YouTube video tomorrow, just so they understand that aren't here. Natalie?
Sure. I hesitate because I'm not sure if we want to just kind of skip to the part 2, or do you want me to kind of review our comments, or?
Just, you want to hit the big ones? I know they got your comment letter. I know they got some stuff they have to readdress, and then we'll go into the.
Okay.
We'll go right to the part 2.
Right. So as George mentioned, we did we segmented our memo, site plan issues, subdivision issues, seeker issues, and the reason that we still are raising these site plan and subdivision issues are because they could be threshold to the application. So one of the major site plan issues is these lot area deductions, and again, having that proof of the wetland boundary delineated is important. So we'll look forward to that information. Deductions for easements are required. I think there's just a minor discrepancy in the applicant's calculations versus what we estimate from the plan or scale from the plan. And then the last one that I wanted to just kind of talk to the board about because it requires your input is the riparian zone that essentially extends to, so just to back up, the Water Quality Protection Overlay District has a 50-foot undisturbed riparian zone as well as a 100-foot buffer. The way that the code is written is the riparian zone is measured from the top of the stream bank except where a recharging freshwater wetland is located adjacent to that regulated water body. For a similar application, you had asked that the applicant confirm whether or not a wetland that was separated from the regulated body but had a stream, basically, that connected the two, was hydrologically connected. And in that case, the riparian zone had extended to the wetland, north of that property. This is a very similar circumstance, so we believe that the riparian zone and the buffer zone do actually extend to the wetlands that are on the applicant's property. So the first part is that the applicant should show those buffer areas on the plan. The second part is in the code definition for deductions of net lot area. The planning board has the authority to consider areas that should be left undisturbed, and those areas then should be deducted from the net lot area calculations. So this has come up a couple of times with other applications, but it hasn't gotten to the point where the board had to make a decision on that. And Kelly's looking at me, so she may have something to add to this. Okay. But I did want to just kind of raise that because if essentially the applicant is going to be required to deduct those riparian areas from the net lot area calculations, that does impact the lot area that they have. And again, that would set the precedent for these applications moving forward and how that lot area definition is applied. So that's something for the board to discuss. The second thing with respect to the proposed subdivision is that the applicant is proposing to take area from lot 218, 213, which is Plan Northwest, the lot there, and combine that with the senior housing parcel that they want to rezone. The applicant in this recent submission has confirmed that that parcel 213 is largely encumbered by wetland areas. So an important part of the subdivision process is to confirm that the remainder lots, or any lots really that are created as part of that subdivision, are buildable. If that lot was subject to the lot area deductions and was not buildable because it doesn't comply with the minimum lot area required, then that could impact how the subdivision plays out. So we've just asked the applicant to confirm those calculations on the plan. And I think their correspondence said that they did have those calculations on the plan, but we didn't see them. So it's possible that that's just going to be an easy submission for them, in the future. But I wanted to point that out. And then the last thing with the subdivision is, as Joe mentioned, they are proposing to rectify some encroachments by combining areas from lot 213 and then also the southern parcel, I think it's 107, I could be wrong, to the Lakeside Trailer Park parcel. And essentially that would, rectify the encroachments, but there would still be encroachments within the setbacks required. So it would, I guess, lessen the degree of nonconformity, but still create a nonconforming condition. So we've asked Kelly to weigh in on that in our memo. With respect to seeker, we had comments on the wetlands, mostly just looking for information from the applicant, from the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEC, written determinations from those agencies for your file. As was already stated, the wetlands will be regulated on a local level, so the adjacent area, which is was a 100-foot buffer requirement, essentially should be shown on the applicant's plans. We take no exception to the revised water and sewer estimates that the applicant provided, although they should provide an updated projected water and sewer demand form. With respect to sewer, that issue has been resolved with an out-of-area user agreement with the village board. When we were reviewing the applicant's Part 3, we found that there were some inconsistencies among that agreement with the village board and what the applicant's representations were in the narrative, so those should be updated. For example, I think the agreement requires that a building permit could be issued for site work only upon resolution of the EPA compliance order or prior to the resolution of the EPA compliance order. So just the specifics of that should be updated in the narrative for you to review. Also, this issue about so essentially downstream of where the applicant proposes to connect is Holland Avenue Pump Station, and that pump station has historical overflows, which is why the village has been issued a compliance order from the EPA. While the village resolves that, it was noted that the capacity at that pump station is limited. So the applicant's narrative talks about I&I improvements that were performed by others, but actually we haven't been able to verify that they were actually completed. So we're just asking the applicant to strike that or provide that documentation or proof that you would need to make that finding, essentially. I hope that makes sense. And then as far as phasing goes, again, if the applicant proceeds to just a site work phase, that would add a third phase to this development, so that should be noted in the narrative. And then as far as the endangered species discussion, we agree with the applicant's response and mitigation measures. There was a discussion on the relocation of beavers from the site. It refers to documentation on that issue, so that should be submitted to the planning board for your record. And then lastly, I think you're still waiting for a determination on SHPO.
I know there was correspondence on that. With the, I guess, almost one of your first points, with the height, the riparian zone. Is that something we have to talk tonight, or that area should be counted as the net lot in the net lot area, or?
I think we should look at that further, but I think for purposes of tonight, I think the primary focus is what's the next step for the project, and the next step for the project is the IDA.
Okay.
And then we can have that further discussion to see how that's really going to impact the project and what would need to be modified on the site.
Okay. Sounds good. Questions for now? Phil?
Good evening, Philip Reilly, Colliers. We have an August 10th letter outlining a few items. So back in May of 22, we had provided some comments, and a couple of the outstanding items at that time were input from New York State DOT. If you recall, the sidewalk in this vicinity is on the west side of Route 32.
Yeah.
So we, subsequent to our memo, I think it was late May 25th of 22, DOT did provide some comments to the applicant and suggested that a sidewalk be constructed on the side of the street connecting down to the Ford Avenue intersection, where there is a sidewalk that continues south of there on the east side of 32. So that's discussed in the narrative from the applicant, but I think it's important to have some sort of a plan just to reference that. The project is being developed in 2 phases, and relative to the parking waiver, we had recommended that a parking study be done after the first phase to ensure that, and also to look at whether it's possible to have some land bank spaces in that area. And those were really the two major items, I think, that, you know, were left out there. DOT had reviewed the applicant's traffic study, and, you know, and we had reviewed that, and it had addressed everything previous. So that's really where we stand.
Thank you. Questions for Phil? No? No? You gonna do the part two, Kelly?
I'm ready. I got extra water this morning. So I distributed to the board and a copy to the applicant as well, a draft of part two for your consideration, compared off of the part one that they provided. And as per my normal practice, the little arrows on the right-hand side indicate small rather than no. So I will go through each one and respond to those questions. Under number one, impact on land, the answer is yes. There'd be two proposed small impacts, which would be the proposed action may involve construction on slopes of 15% or greater, and the proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including treatment by herbicide. And one potential moderate to large impact may occur, which is the proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or multiple phases. Impact on geological features was no. Impact on surface waters was yes. The following were potential small impacts. The proposed action may create a water body. The proposed action may create turbidity in a water body either from upland erosion, runoff, or by disturbing bottom sediments. The proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies. And the proposed action may require the construction of new or expansion of existing wastewater treatment facilities. And there were two potential moderate to large impacts. The proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body. And the proposed action may affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of the proposed action. Impact on groundwater was yes, and there were two potential moderate to large impacts. The proposed action may require new water supply wells or create additional demand on supplies from existing water supply wells. And water supply demand from the proposed action may exceed safe and sustainable withdrawal capacity rate of the local supplier aquifer. Impact on flooding. There were four potential small impacts. The proposed action may result in development within a 100-year floodplain, a 500-year floodplain, and the proposed action may result in or require modification of existing drainage patterns. The proposed action may change floodwater flows that contribute to flooding. Impacts on air was no. Impact on plants and animals was yes, with a potential small impact being the proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government. Impact on agricultural resources was no. Impact on aesthetic resources was yes, and there were several potential moderate to large impacts. The proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. The proposed action may result in the obstruction, elimination, or significant screening of one or more officially designated scenic views. The proposed action may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points seasonally and year-round. The situation or activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work. And the proposed action may cause a diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of the designated aesthetic resource. Number 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources was yes, with a potential small impact of the proposed action may
Questions, feedback for Kelly from the EAF that she's prepared? The board's willing, going to accept as prepared? All right, so I'll make a motion to accept the EAF2 as presented by council.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
If the applicant has indicated that they would like to proceed with an expanded part 3 at this time, and I know they have submitted materials in that regard, and Natalie's comments on it as well. So now that you have a part 2, the consultants can take a look at it based on what you've determined the potential impacts to be, see what's there, see what's outstanding, et cetera, and provide you with guidance based on it.
Right, and that's pretty much for tonight, that's all we can really do until we get that back.
Right, and so I think that it's a pretty big step to getting to see what the potential impacts were and
Yeah.
how they could be mitigated.
Okay. All right. Yes, sir. Sure.
So I think we're at a fruitful point where we can move forward on the details of your ultimate seeker determination. There are a couple of points that I would like to address. One concerns the riparian zone. The definition of a recharging freshwater wetland is one that recharges the aquifer and is, it's not the question of whether it's hydraulically connected. That's basically been acknowledged because the water does flow down to Moodna Creek. It's the question of the recharge and the nature of the soils in that area and whether or not it supports a determination by your board that that's actually the case. So that's a very technical issue, I believe. Steve George can address it at length, but I don't think you necessarily want to have that happen tonight. I think would be most productive if you would authorize your whatever appropriate, Phil is probably not the guy who's involved with this, but if your consultants can talk to Mr. George and he can explain the information that he has from doing the wetlands analysis, and
I think that'll be okay.
okay. There are a couple of other points in the seeker determination that I think we can address. One is the concern about continuous construction, and it's not really a big issue, but when I was going through preparing for tonight's meeting, I was reminded of a memo that Kelly's office provided you in 2018, which basically lays out the process for going through large, small, and large impacts. And one of the points about that particular point is continuous construction for a period of time. So one of the reasons that we are trying to break this into 3 phases is that if we can do the site preparation and clearing, stabilize the property, and then whenever the situation with the pump stations is resolved, if we get permission to go forward with that, we'll be in a position to do that. But it also breaks up some of the construction activity. And then the actual construction of the buildings is 6 to 9 months. It is broken out into 2 because if you recall, there was some concern about whether there was need for the entire project. So we agreed that we would separate the building construction into 2 phases, and when a certain amount of, I don't remember the exact amount, but when the rental on the first building indicates there is need for more, we would start construction. From all we know, the need has increased, it has not decreased. It's quite possible we may be able to proceed with both at the same time or in short order. But this, again, provides the opportunity for it to be spread out, constructed in a more finite time, and in a way that doesn't disturb the neighbors or the residents of the facilities. And there are a couple of other points that we'll address at greater length in the revised narrative, and hopefully we can come back to you in September if possible, because I know once this gets through, then we go to the village board, and we'd like to get to them before the holiday season strikes. Their agendas are a little shorter then and a little less frequent. So we'd like to get through the public hearing process again with them.
You could also get lucky and they could have the pump station situation all worked out for you, and you wouldn't have to worry about having to take a pause either.
It all depends on what year we go back. It's a challenge for the village, I know, and, we're optimistic the village will work diligently and take care of things as soon as possible.
I know the village board is working as hard as they can to resolve those issues, so,
And the same with the water situation.
Yeah.
So we're optimistic that we'll be set up in place and ready to go whenever the village says we have the water and sewer solved. So I
I
thank
will-
you for your time tonight.
I will be completely honest with you, the September meeting is most likely not going to happen.
September 20th is closed.
September 20th is closed, there's a DEIS we're reviewing, most likely reviewing that night. So
Okay.
I don't think you'll get everything in time for the 6th.
As soon as we can. But we appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Steve is here, and he comes down from north of Lake George. The rattlesnakes and the bats are not terribly, I think it would be helpful if he could just explain briefly about the bats and the rattlesnake actions that we've taken to make sure it's protective. So in case there are any questions, you have the opportunity tonight to actually talk to him in person.
That's fine.
Yeah, Stephen George from North Country Ecological Services. We did the wetlands and endangered species review on the site. I did review the environmental mapper and Fish and Wildlife Service lists. None of the species that we had listed during the initial application have changed, still the same. We did have a conference call with DEC regarding timber rattlesnakes. We're within 2.5 miles of a known hibernacula, so that kind of puts us into that zone of we need to take some protective measures. We've agreed to use the exclusionary fencing during construction, which DEC was satisfied with. And I'm also licensed by the DEC to come down and do the monitoring, and if a timber rattlesnake's on the site, I'm licensed to remove it, take it somewhere else. With regard to the northern long-eared bat, Indiana bat, both endangered species, we did an assessment of the property, located using GPS, all the trees on the site, which would be summer roost habitat, in which case those trees would be felled during the wintertime. Probably most of the clearing would be done probably during the wintertime. So there'd be full avoidance of a taking permit that's needed, since we're not gonna harm any of the bats, so.
What, I know during construction, you guys will put up fencing to stop the rattlesnakes. What happens after construction is, like, we have one community that still has fencing around it because they had the rattlesnakes there when they built it. Is there a long-term plan to potentially keep the rattlesnakes out?
Well, in discussion with Lisa Bassi from DEC, she says that they've never had an indication of rattlesnakes coming down that far. We discussed matters, there've been reports of rattlesnakes in the trailer park. She said no. So basically, we're gonna keep the fencing up during construction, but I assume after construction it'll be removed. So it's highly unlikely they'll come down, but we're on call that if a snake does enter the property, seems to be a threat, we can come down and remove it, so.
Sounds like a fun job some days.
Yeah.
Where do you relocate them to?
Safe place.
Somebody you don't like?
Yeah, so now we have to coordinate that with DEC into a safe location that's closer to the hibernacula, so.
Okay, I was just, somebody ends up with one in their pool or something. Does the board have questions?
I know you had a question about the beavers. So we did an assessment of where the beaver pond was in relation to the project site. Based on our assessment, it was 944 feet away, down gradient of the project site. And I say was because the residents of the trailer park had issue with the beavers flooding the property. According to the individual we talked to, who was a resident right there next to the old pond, they contacted the town said call the DEC. DEC issued a permit. They hired a nuisance wildlife control agent to come in. Apparently 5 beavers were removed and the dam was breached, so the pond was let go, and I've got graphic and photographs of all that. So.
Are beavers one of those animals that like to come back when they've been relocated?
Yes, we're also nuisance wildlife control agents, and beavers are a pain in the neck because they're rodents and they keep coming back all the time. So I assume that based on the water flows and where the old pond was, that a permit will be reissued again at some point in time. We couldn't find a record of anybody having that permit to trap them out. But I did call Mike Frotz from DEC, he's a biologist, and asked him if he had any record. He did not, but he forwarded that email to the people that distribute the nuisance permits.
Okay,
So I'm hoping at some point we'll get a copy of it
Sure.
somewhere down the road. So.
And is there typically anything that has to be done to stop the long-term, to keep the beavers from
No.
repopulating?
Unfortunately, there's no real long-term,
Just got to deal with it as they come.
pretty much.
Okay. I was going to say, can you put the rattlesnakes in the beaver den and
Yeah.
two birds, one stone? Any other questions?
Survival of the fittest.
Circle of life, man. Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir.
We'd have an environmentalist standing in our next meeting.
Yeah, I know. No beavers or rattlesnakes were harmed in the making of this meeting. All right, so, what's up? Yeah, but that's what I was saying, they took it, I'm just wondering if they came back, but all right, so that's it on that, right, Kelly and Natalie? I think we're good there.
Yep.
Okay. And then last but not least is Rushmore Estates. Review and discuss documents submitted for site plan and special permit for proposed event venue. Said property is located at 14 Castleton Road in Highland Mills and is known as the Village of Woodbury Tax Maps, Section 202, Block 1, Lot 70. You're up again, George.
See that? I don't come here for 2 years and then I'm on twice.
Hey, at least I put you back to back. I didn't make you like...
I appreciate that. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Rushmore application. The Rushmore application is a novelty for this board. The village board adopted legislation in February. Seth Pulver has been working with his consultants, basically the engineer, Larry Toro, and Joe Menuda, the architect, to develop the plan for what he wants to accomplish there. So the way I characterized it when I was talking to Seth recently is there's a lot of possibilities, and then there's a few probabilities as to what he's going to do there. And as you may be aware, there has been a consent agreement with the village to allow him to continue or establish. I want to be very careful about what I'm saying here. It allows the activities on the site to go forward pursuant to a schedule, and he has been working hard to make those activities take place in a manner which is respectful and very respectful of the neighbors, of his clients, and in a manner that he thinks is a credit to the village. So the activities, this is a sort of novel thing because it's a new definition in your code, but it's an actual activity that you can look at and kick the tires with the consultants. We asked to be on the agenda for the last application because the engineer is not going to be available in September. The engineer on this project is Larry Toro from Civil Tech. He's out of Chester, and he is currently recuperating from double knee surgery last Monday.
Ouch.
So the pain medication, he's resisting pain medication. He seems to be working through it, but he is not here tonight because he's not able to be here. He will be probably able to appear at the next, apparently in October, but we very much want to start the conversation. It is a novel project. There are questions that we have about how this is actually going to work from the planning board standpoint that we would like to get comment on. Natalie has provided, again, a good summary of what the application and the use is and what's been presented and questions that need to be answered. We're prepared to work forward with that, with Larry primarily as the engineer dealing with those questions, but unfortunately, as I said, he can't be here tonight.
understandable. I would give him a lot of credit if he showed up with double knee replacement. All right, do we have any questions for George overall before we speak to, no? Okay. Natalie?
All right. As George mentioned, the legislation for event venues was recently adopted. This is the first application before the planning board for event venues. This is also the first appearance of this application before you, although this site obviously has some history with prior bed and breakfast approvals, and then most recently there was an application for a farm winery that was withdrawn in 2022, I think, in February of that year. So that's just for the board's background and information. Our review memo is just heavily dependent on the new zoning and, you know, what the requirements are therein. So I can kind of go through those comments quickly, although, you know, I think I'll just skip to sort of the threshold ones.
Yeah.
That way, you know, Larry can work on the plan and get back to us on some of these. So one of the things that we noted is that the parking available at the venue is not sufficient to accommodate the number of attendees that the applicant is proposing, as well as the employees. So that's something that needs to be addressed at the appropriate time. With respect to water supply, the village is obviously under a moratorium. The applicant should provide an estimate of the average day and max day demand and indicate that on the projected water and sewer demand form. In order to consider the implications under the moratorium, the applicant should demonstrate what the increase for an event venue might be as opposed to what's currently being used as a bed and breakfast and single-family home. With respect to the sewer, the property is served by a private septic system. The applicant's materials indicated that anything above 99, or any event above 99 users, restroom facilities would be rented for those events. So the septic system should be confirmed adequate for up to 99 users essentially, and we've asked for a certified inspection report on that system. Regarding that, location of the refuse facility should be shown on the plan. There are some, so the code specifically requires an event management plan and outlines specific information that should be within that. The applicant provided a narrative, which is essentially the same thing. There was some missing information, including the maximum number of events and the hours of operation, details on amplifying equipment, so you can consider any noise issues associated with the property. It seems silly, but not really, actually, and I shouldn't have said that at all. Just forgive me. There is a requirement for you to review temporary structures and tents under your ARB, so the applicant should provide information on that for a future submission. And then the only other thing I wanted to kind of point out is that although the property is in a location where it would typically be subject to the ridge preservation requirements, there is no clearing or new structures being proposed, so there's really no further review under that section at this time. Although if the application changes, you know, and there are any improvements to the site, then we would have additional comments. All right?
Yep. Questions for Natalie? No? No? All right. Got off easy. Phil?
So,